Hey guys, it's Sarah from Just My Typewriter, and I'm here with another cleaning project. So as you know, I have an estate sale problem. I really like going to estate sales. I'm also lucky enough to have a permanent estate sale location in my local antique mall that rotates through stock weekly. So I get to go there and check out what they have on a semi-weekly basis, and often there are typewriters there, and because I have not much competition in my area for typewriters, I'm usually the only one interested in buying them. So I do check that out every couple weeks, and I can get typewriters there for pretty cheap costs. I've had typewriters from there for $8 before. This one was $5. So I walked into the estate sale one fateful Sunday morning, as I usually do. I just spied it in the middle of the floor, just the case. I pointed at it and said, "That's a typewriter." There was a guy standing next to it who was putting prices on books, and he said, "I literally just set that out." I looked down at the price tag. It was $5. So it didn't matter what the typewriter was. Just for the case alone, I would have paid that, but I did decide to look in it. He warned me. He said, "It's rough." Now, I've seen some rough typewriters before, so I was prepared for anything. I opened the case, and inside was this 1955 quiet-riter from Remington, and it was covered in mold. Now, I'm not afraid of a moldy typewriter, but the salesperson did let me know that that's usually a deterrent for most people on products. However, I know how to remove that, so it really helped me out because it made this typewriter a little bit more affordable. I picked up the typewriter for $5 and brought it home. Now, when I have a new typewriter project, I always go through about a 3-step process. I first assess any damage or anything that needs done on the typewriter. I do a quick test of all the keys. I make sure the platen moves around. I just want to see if it's working, and if it's not, what I need to fix. Sometimes that'll happen, and I'll do that just to make sure that there's not going to be something that flies out of the machine when I go with the air compressor in stage 2. So I did do that test on this typewriter, and besides the mold, everything seemed to be working perfectly on this machine. I then took it outside and I did do my internal clean of the typewriter, which I use mineral spirits and an air compressor and a toothbrush to go through and make sure all of the moving pieces of the typewriter are properly cleaned. Now, I will take mineral spirits and a toothbrush and go through the type basket to make sure I've cleaned out all those slots where the type slugs are so that they move pretty frequently and move smoothly. Sometimes if you have mold on a typewriter or you have oil on a typewriter, it can settle in that type basket and it can slow down your type slugs and make a key go up and then maybe not come down all the way or go slow going up. It just can really limit the mobility of a typewriter and the carriage. So I cleaned that out with mineral spirits and an air compressor, and then I brought it inside to do my favorite part of the process, which is a simple green clean. Now, I know somebody here has tried to turn me saying simple green into a drinking game, so maybe sit this one out. I started by taking simple green and applying it to the keys of the typewriter. That's where most of the mold was. When I'm using simple green on typewriter keys, I usually like to do it in a couple thin coats. So I will start by doing one first pass over those typewriter keys. I spray the simple green directly on the keys. I let it sit for a little bit, and then I'll go in with a microfiber cloth and a Q-tip, and I'll just pick away at the mold and wipe it off. Now, I also do this with keys that have nicotine damage, and when you have nicotine residue left on a key top, sometimes it can take you a few passes to make sure you get all that staining off of there, which is why I suggest to do it in thin coats and do a couple of them. So I had removed the mold from the key tops themselves, but there was still a little bit there around the rim of the key, so I went in and did a second pass. And then I realized that there might be some underneath the keys too. So I flipped the typewriter over and did a simple clean of the bottom of those keys as well, just to make sure I was getting rid of any of that residue so nothing was left on the typewriter to grow later. Once that was cleaned, I took some simple green to the frame and the outside of the machine itself. It really wasn't that dirty, but I wanted to make sure that I had anything that could turn into mold later off of the typewriter itself. And I find that that can help if you have a smelly typewriter. Sometimes those smells can just get left on the machine, so I used some simple green to clean the outside of the machine as well. And then I took the case, which is very smelly. I sprayed it with simple green and then I let it sit outside for a couple days. And I always suggest this when you have a smelly case because sometimes stuff just gets trapped in there and it can smell musty and old. So sitting a case outside, especially in the sun, can help get rid of some of those odors, and I usually spray something on it that can make it smell a little bit better as well. So I let that sit outside for a few days, and then I had a fully cleaned typewriter. Someone was living in my typewriter case. I went through and did a test again of the keys just to make sure that everything was in working order. and everything worked fine. So I just picked up a $5 typewriter, and it really only took me a day to go through the cleaning process on this one. After I did some testing, I then had to decide if I wanted to keep this machine. Now I have a Remington travel-riter, which I love and I've talked about here before. It's super snappy. I've put a cotton ribbon in it, and I really just like the action on that machine. And I sat down to test this machine against that one, and I realized I liked the travel-riter better. And I really didn't need doubles of the Remingtons in my collection. Now there's some differences between the two models, but I just decided I liked the other one better, which meant that I had to figure out something to do with this one. Now I have so many typewriters here, it's kind of overwhelming. So anytime I get a machine that I'm just not super stoked about, I do decide to list it for sale. Now I like to sell typewriters locally. I'm afraid of shipping things. Although I have shipped some ultra portables more recently, I just prefer selling locally because I don't have to worry about the typewriters getting broken in the process. So I did list this on my local Facebook marketplace and then cross-posted it in a few different sale groups from the local area. I put about $50 on it. I put that as my price because that's how I list all of my typewriters, regardless of size or age or rarity. I just know that that's the price point that usually gets some attention in my local area on typewriters because I've done some testing, and I usually have to negotiate down from that $50 price. So I did put $50 on this machine and listed it on Facebook Marketplace. Now it sat for a little bit and didn't get any attention, but then I did get a message from a lady who actually lived in Virginia who was looking for a typewriter to give to her soon-to-be brother-in-law as a wedding present. And I love road trips, so I was like, yeah, I'll come to Virginia. So let's take this typewriter to its new home.
Oh, wow. There's one over here.
You can't even see. Yeah. Oh no, now we're going uphill. That is a combo Pizza Hut and HR Block, all in the same building. None of that is cube. Want it. It's just creepy.
It's extremely creepy.
I really don't like it.
I've been in the car.
How long have you been in the car?
17 hours.
17 hours in the car. That's a long time. So I hope that this was a little bit helpful to you to go through a quick flip process for me. I bought this typewriter for $5 and sold it for $50. It was a really easy thing to clean up, but sometimes when people see typewriters out there and they look a little gross or dirty, they don't know where to start on those machines, and they don't know if there's any value in those typewriters if they do look dirty and gross. But I cleaned up plenty of machines and have brought them back to working order, and I know that when I see a moldy typewriter, it really only takes me a little bit of Simple Green to get it sorted out. So I hope this information was helpful to you. There are some other YouTube videos on this channel that are typewriter themed and related, and I also have an Instagram at just.my.typewriter. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today, and I want to remind you that you're just my typewriter.